In order to multiply matrices, you have to understand how to multiply a row by a column. So the way it works is if we take out any row or column from any matrix to get the product, what you're going to do is you're going to take your row, okay, here's your row, you're going to take your column next, so it has to be row from the first one, column from your second matrix, and you're going to multiply each piece at a time where this is moving to the right and this is moving down, and then you're going to add all the products together. And what that's going to do, it's going to give you the element in that row and column when you multiply them, okay? Now, before we can even figure out if we can multiply them, we need to look at the two dimensions of the matrices we want to multiply. So I'm going to talk about this while we're actually looking at one. So here we have AC, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this out here. So A is 0, 3, -4, 1, 3, 2, and C is 4, 1, 2, 6, -3, 2. What are the dimensions of A here? 2 by 3. And what are the dimensions of C? 3 by 2. Okay? So over here it talks about the inner dimensions, right? And it says the inner dimensions have to have the same value in order for there to actually have a product exist. So in order to even multiply, the inner dimensions have to match. Well, here's how it works. You have your matrix on the left, and multiplication is not commutative. So AC is not the same thing as CA. So the order here doesn't matter. And what happens is this becomes your inner dimensions. And for this one, do they match? Yes, when that happens, all that tells you is you can actually find their product, like one exists, okay? So then we talk about the outer dimensions. What happens with the outer dimensions is it gives us the size of the resulting product, all right? So what are the outer dimensions here? 2 by 2. So when I multiply A times C, I'm going to have a 2 by 2 matrix, okay? So now we're going to kind of go back to this whole row column idea, okay? And what happens is you are going to use the rows from the first one. So we have row 1 here, and we have row 2, and then over here from matrix C I have column 1 and column 2. And what you do is to get your new matrix, we're going to have, to get the row 1, column 1 element, I'm going to multiply row 1 times column 1. To get the row 1, column 2 element, I'm going to multiply row 1 times column 2. And then likewise, row 2 times column 1 and row 2 times column 2. And that's going to tell me the position in my new 2 by 2 matrix of where that goes. So what you do is, again, looking at this, just so you guys can see this notation, we're multiplying row 1, column 1, row 2, column 2, row n, column n, right? So here, what is row 1, column 1, this first position here? What's 0 times 4? 0. And then I'm going to add a plus sign, and then I'm going to move this to the right and this down. What is 3 times 2? 6. And what is -4 times -3? 12. This is going to be row 1, column 1. It'll be 18 when all is said and done. I'm going to keep writing the rest of it out before I do a simplified matrix, but this is row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2, we do the same thing. 0 times 1? 3 times 6? And -4 times 2? So 0 plus 18 minus 8. All right, now we go to row 2, column 1. 4 times 6 times -6. So 4 plus 6 plus -6, and then 1 plus 18 plus 4. Okay, so this is the work for multiplying it out. So we get 18, 10, 4, 23. And that is how you multiply matrices. So this is the product of matrix A times matrix C. Okay? All right, what I want you guys to do now is type A, B, and C in.
So we'll be basically using our calculator to do these.
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to know how to do it.
Yep.
I got all the practice pages from yesterday done in classes.
Okay, now once you have that in, go ahead and type in A and then C. And again, you can press 3 for C versus like actually arrowing down to C. So we type in AC, and here's our 1810 423. All right, so the calculator is really doing a lot of work for you. This was a simple one, but imagine if your dimensions ended up being like a 4x4, your outer dimensions, that would take a lot of time to multiply that all out. Okay, I want everybody to try typing in B. Go. Everybody type it in. Did you press enter? What happened? Right, you get this invalid dimensions. Now you need to be careful. Don't write that down. All right, this one is one of the most missed on a quiz or a test. Okay, so I want you guys to put a star here. Okay, and I actually don't know the reason why, so if you guys can come up with one and share it with me, that would be great. But when you type this in your calculator, for some reason it's not processing that this works. But if you type in C times A minus B, then it gives you the answer for some reason. I don't know why. All right, I don't know what the difference is. So if we go back here and we insert a multiplication button and we press enter, then voila, you get the answer. So do be careful for that, okay, because your calculator can do this. The other thing you could do is you could distribute this. You could type CA minus CB, and it will also do that for you, okay? So we need to do this. Then you probably typed in something wrong. We'll look at that in a second. Let me just get through these problems here. So we get okay, so we have that one, all right, and what I want to do is look at this next one, and then we'll go through and figure out some calculator errors, okay? So this next one, we have this I. This is the identity. So similar to how when you add and subtract matrices, if you add a 0 matrix, then you get the same thing out. Well, you need to have a matrix that you can multiply to get the same thing out. So if I multiply a square matrix times one of these identities, so if I multiply a 2 by 2 by this identity matrix 2, then what's going to happen is I'm going to get the same matrix I started with back out. It's like multiplying by 1, okay? So the way this works is all the diagonals are 1s, okay? And everything else is a 0. So the diagonal from the top left-hand side to the bottom right-hand corner is going to be 1. Everything else is a 0. And if you multiply inverses, so for example, like if you did like 5 times 1/5, you would get 1. Well, 1 is your multiplicative identity, right? Well, if you take a matrix, a square matrix, times its inverse, then you would get the identity matrix. It would be the same thing, and you could go either way, all right? So when we have this, we need to have a way to type it in. So there's two things you could do. This little 2 tells me that this is a square matrix, a 2 by 2 square matrix, so I know that it's going to look like this one. So you could type that into your calculator and make that like D, E, F, G, I, whatever you want to make it. Choose a matrix to do that. But we actually also have a button that will do that for you. So I'm going to show you guys that. So what we have here then, we're going to retype AC. Ugh, keep doing that. So we have AC plus 3. And if you go to matrix and you go to math, then we have this identity feature. This is your identity matrix. And what size do we want? Yeah, we want the 2 by 2. So I just put a 2 in there and that parentheses.
Where do you go to get that?
Math, matrix math.
Okay.
I think it's number 5. Then you press enter, and then we can have our answer here. So this is 21, 10, 4, 26. All right. So maybe up here, you're going to go to matrix, math, and then identity. Okay, so this is, I believe it's number 5. I'll double check on that. Matrix, math, yeah, number 5 here. Okay, 5 is your identity. Good? So that'll give it to you, and then you pick the size of the square matrix that you want.